Hey everyone, it's Maury Mull. Today I'm covering the top Ben Solo and Reylo moments of both Legacy of Vader issue 5 and the final and fifth issue of the Rise of Skywalker adaptation. Now, I am aware that Legacy of Vader 6 did just come out this past week. I will cover that next time, but I wanted to get Legacy of Vader issue 5 and the final Rise of Skywalker issues out at the same time, and since their schedules had been altered a little bit, I had to wait a bit before I could do both at the same time. But without further ado, let's get started. So, first of all, for Legacy of Vader issue 5, this issue begins where the last one began on Naboo. And if you'll remember, this is where Vane told Kylo about Vader's love for Padme, and Kylo took a little bit of issue with this, thinking Vane was insinuating he should fall in love. Kylo ended that issue with declaring himself the king of Naboo, likely in some kind of honor of his grandmother. And so that brings us to this issue, which is mostly about Kylo helping his grandmother's planet in the strange Ben Solo way that only he can do. And what I find fascinating about this entire comic series is that it seems like Kylo is going about healing the psychic trauma of his family by addressing the uncorrected harms done to it in the past, which is a way to move forward from the past. And it's not totally a bad thing by itself. Obviously, we can argue whether he's going about it the right way and how self-aware he is of what he's trying to do. But it does seem like that is what he is doing. Earlier in Legacy of Vader, he was so incensed that his grandfather and great-grandmother's owner, Gardula the Hutt, was still alive, that he set forth to kill her. Vader never did end slavery in the galaxy, and Kylo doesn't seem to have that we know of, but he does kill the one person that owned Anakin and Shmi, in a sense providing a justice that never came to his grandfather and righting a wrong that his parents and uncle never did. So this story on Naboo is very interesting because it's really not about vengeance like the former story. It's about bringing action and the will to live to Naboo again. Because Padme can be seen as an avatar of Naboo, like a Fisher King. And after she realizes Anakin fell to the dark side in Revenge of the Sith, she lost the will to live. And so, in a sense, Naboo died with her that day and collectively lost its will. And it just started coasting by through the Empire, and it fell into passivity and into decadence and allowing its nobles to engage in infighting. Kylo Ren tells Vane later in this issue that he wants to catalyst Naboo, get it jump-started and get it back into strength and get it into action again. He doesn't say it explicitly, but it's to help the planet revive and to move on from the death of its queen and be worthy of Padme's memory. And of course, Kylo does this in the craziest way possible. And so the first thing I want to highlight in this issue is we see Kylo Ren wearing a black version of Rey's The Force Awakens costume. I mean, it's literally the same goggles, the same hood, the same neck covering. It functions as a mask. I don't think he saw her wearing this in The Force Awakens, other than what he would have seen in her mind when he was doing the interrogation, or maybe on a recording. But when you consider that Rey made this look from scratch, like she got the goggles from a stormtrooper helmet, there's no way Kylo would have just bought this. He would have had to have had it made. So, I mean, that's crazy. And so, Kylo may have a tiny little bedroom, but it seems like he's got a really nice closet, and he changes clothes like Padme. But the fact that he's wearing his girlfriend's look is wild to me. It's obviously an intentional choice on his part. I mean, think about it. He saw this in Rey's mind, and at some point, he had somebody make this costume for him. Like, when did that happen? How soon before the story did this occur? But whatever the case, I mean, he's obviously got a replica of his girlfriend's clothes. And then the next point I want to highlight is what I think is also fascinating is that this story is largely about Padme, but unbeknownst to Kylo, this is his dyad's ancestral planet as well. Because Rey is a Palpatine. She is of Nabooan ancestry, even if they don't know it. He is wearing the clothes of a Palpatine, which is, again, kind of wild. And moving right along to my next point, Kylo decides to attack his own First Order men in the street, drawing the attention of Naboo onlookers with his wild, crazy moves. He decides he's going to teach the Naboo to fight back his very own First Order army. And this brings me to my next point, which is the Naboo freedom fighters wonder how he knows everything about the First Order. And Kylo Ren says, well, he was trained in freedom fighting. And of course, he has learned how to do this from Leia and Han. And then we move along to where he starts talking to Hux, getting more information about the attack, and he just passes it right along to the Naboo freedom fighters. And so the fight against the First Order goes relatively well. Kylo is a good leader like Leia and Anakin. And then we get to near the end of the story where Kylo Ren sits in a room and he looks at the mask in his hand. I wonder what he is thinking when he looks at it. After all, this issue does follow from issue number 4, where the specter of romance was brought up. He may be thinking about Rey. I don't know, it's just a speculation on my part, but I think it's possible. But unfortunately, his distraction allows the cheerful Naboo freedom fighters to see his face. They are a bit surprised, but unfortunately it means their death. Kylo can't let it get out to anyone that he helped a battle against his own army, and there really isn't an easy way to explain it away, not one that he would care to divulge to others anyways. So he kills them, but he's dissatisfied at how he feels the deaths take from him. He tells Vinay he wants a good match, and Vinay promises he will find Kylo a good and worthy opponent. Also, it's worthwhile to note that earlier, Vinay tells Kylo that Kylo Ren is attacking his army because he hates himself just as Vader did. And this is likely true to some extent. And it's also worth noting that Kylo Ren does order the First Order to turn away from truly destroying Naboo, to the chagrin of Hux, which is likely that the First Order totally had a capability of destroying Naboo. So even though Kylo killed the freedom fighters, he wasn't about to dash their hopes completely, nor destroy his grandmother's world. The Naboo people are left thinking they have power and will again, and to this effect, Kylo achieved what he wanted to do with Naboo, which was giving Padme's planet the will to live again. Of course, Ben Solo doesn't know it, but Padme may have given up on life, but she never gave up on Anakin and was proven right. And I think she would have believed in Ben Solo as well. Overall, I love this issue. I reread it several times because it is a crazy story, but it's crazy in a way that befits Ben Solo, a man who's trying so hard to be this dark edgelord, but who can't stop the light from getting through. And now we come to Rise of Skywalker number 5, which is the last issue of the comic series. This is the big one, and here are the top Reylo moments. First of all, I want to say Rey looks lovely in this, but I really liked Londo's voiceover here. It tells us that Leia would not want us fighting for Leia herself or her memory, but for everyone to fight for themselves, and that's really great. Leia would not want the hero worship, and I find that a good little counterpoint to the I gotta do it for Luthien stuff that Cassian Andor was doing in the final season of Andor. So I really kind of like that difference of point of view. And then number 2, we now get to Ben Solo running to fight with Rey. But the big thing here is the comic gives us new dialogue between Rey and Ben. It's all done telepathically with Ben saying, do or, do or do not, that Yoda quote, there is no try. I do remember a few years ago when this comic was originally supposed to have come out that Hauser and Sliney, who worked on the comic, they were saying they were thinking of Ray Carson's novelization about writing this ending in the comic book. I thought they meant they would use her ending scene of the dialogue between Ray and Ben after he dies, but I see that they're not using that, but instead what they were using is the telepathy for the battle, which would have Ben and Ray speaking to each other quite a bit through the battle and afterwards if you combine both book and comics. And on an interesting stylistic note, Ray's telepathy bubbles are yellow and Ben's is black with red borders. One of his quotes he says is, "Mysteries of the Force later, fighting now." And I really hope they continue this conversation at some point, hint, hint. As they begin to fight Palpatine, they say, quote, "together," which is kind of an odd thing to say. And at times, as I reread the comic, it seems like we are only getting parts of dialogue as if they are saying more to each other than we, the reader, would be privy to. This becomes apparent with other panels. So we get to Ben Solo saving Rey, and we get the big kiss scene, yay. But that little dialogue you see at the beginning, that's Rey's, and she says, "No, Ben, thank you." And as we get to the next panel that continues that dialogue, we see Ben's life flashing before his eyes, which I believe Rey can see as well. And that bit of dialogue seems to be a response to something Ben never said, which is what I mean by the story seeming to have dialogue we never see. It comes off as a little awkward and weird, but at the same time, it gives the impression that they were communicating wordlessly a lot in this part of the story. Also, I gotta say, Leia telling Han to shut up is kind of cute. And I kept thinking, Ben can't possibly remember that, but then I remembered that Leia remembered Padme when she was a baby, so okay, maybe he does remember being born. And then we get to our next panel, which is Luke and Leia wandering as Force ghosts through the jungle base, and which is a nice scene, but what I want to point out is that Ben Solo does not show up as a Force ghost. It definitely seems that outside of Lego, which is non-canon, Lucasfilm doesn't care to show Ben Solo as a Force ghost, even though it certainly could if it wanted to. So, hint, hint, yeah, maybe he will come back. But just not in a way that we expect. And then finally, the last panel, we get that ending panel where Rey lights her yellow lightsaber. The dialogue at the top seems to be her thinking of Palpatine's "So falls the last Skywalker," which motivates her choice to use that name in honor of her mentors. And that concludes all the Reylo and Ben Solo moments of Legacy of Vader issue 5 and Rise of Skywalker also issue 5. If there's anything you think I missed or if you just want to share your thoughts, let me know and may the Force be with you.